afternoon and welcome to the 5,292nd meeting of the Rotary Club of Tulsa, Club 2500, District 6110, home to Executive Administrator Tina Miller and her compadre, Tommy Lynn, who handles our accounting. We're so glad for Tina and Tommy Lynn, aren't we? We're glad that you came here to be with us today. You're going to be glad that you came. You've probably noticed that Rotary is built on relationships, people who show up for one another and for our community. And this room is full of people that reflect that commitment. To begin our program, past President Chuck Wilson will introduce new members and guests, except that, where is Chuck Wilson? Oh, there he is. He was sitting down. Are you hiding under the table again, Chuck? My goodness. First of all, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, please. Come out from under the table, Chuck. Thank you, sir. Well, as you will see, this is officially banking day. All 4 of our new members are bankers. I don't know if that's ever happened before, has it? I'm not sure it has. So, all right. So, first I'd like to introduce, but I have to get one more piece of paper. Thank you. Zach Fate is a commercial banking relationship manager with Bank of Oklahoma. A Tulsa native, he attended Oklahoma State University, where he earned bachelor's and master's degrees in accounting. After becoming a CPA, Zach began his career as an auditor before transitioning into commercial banking. He lives in South Tulsa with his wife, Caden, and 2 children, Dominic and Mary Ellie. Zach was introduced to Rotary by our Membership Services Director, Dylan Harden. He has been active in the Risk Management Association as well as with his church, the Church of St. Mary. A little known fact about Zach: he studied Mandarin Chinese from middle school through college. However, it's been about 10 years, so a conversation may require a warm-up before he could get started. Next is Russ Smith. Russ is Executive Vice President of Commercial Lending at Bank First in Jinx, sponsored by Paul Ballman. A former Rotarian for many years in Bixby, Russ and his wife Tanya have been married for 26 years. They have 5 kids and 7 grandkids. He started his career with Bank First in Jinx. Russ has been involved with both the Chamber of Commerce as well as the Optimist Club while in Bixby. Little known fact. Now, this is the most unusual little-known fact. In 1976, this is in his words, I was home on Christmas break from OSU, working as a teller at the local hometown bank in downtown Bixby. A young lady walked into the bank, stepped up to my window to rob the bank. But I was so slow as a teller that she got tired of waiting and went to the teller next to him and presented a note that said she had a gun. She got away with over $8,000, which in 1976 was a lot. Jinx police caught her 2 weeks later. She had a .45 caliber gun strapped to her thigh, and she was a dispatcher for the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. You couldn't even make this up, right? Right. Okay. Amy Cook is a Tulsa native. She is Executive Vice President at Bank First, so that explains why her sponsor is Paul Ballman. Amy has been a commercial lender for 15 years, specializing in small to medium-sized businesses and SBA lending. She says the best part of her job is getting to help business owners grow and become successful. Amy has been actively involved with the Jinx Chamber of Commerce, Junior Achievement, and the Oklahoma Council on Economic Education. Fun fact, after she leaves her day job, Amy starts her second job. She and her husband have a little farm in Bixby. They raise South Down baby doll sheep, along with llamas, goats, chickens, and geese. Okay. Grant Fox is Vice President of Commercial Lending at, where do you think? Bank First in Jinx, that's correct. So you know who his sponsor is. In his role, he works closely with business owners to provide financing solutions and build long-term partnerships that support the growth of local businesses and communities. Grant holds an MBA from Northeastern State University and a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Business from Oklahoma State University. He and his wife, Libby, have one daughter and enjoy spending time outdoors together. In his free time, Grant enjoys golfing, hunting, and cheering on Oklahoma State athletics. Go Pokes. He is looking forward to becoming involved with Rotary and contributing to different service initiatives that make a meaningful impact in the local community. Fun fact, listen to this, John. He has played piano since he was 5 years old. We have another pianist in our club. Isn't that great? Would you please welcome our new members today? Thank you. I have one guest. Go ahead and do that. Okay. We are so glad that Daniel Ketchum brought Peter Buscemi with him today. Would you please stand so we can welcome you? Thank you. Thank you very much.
We actually have one other guest today. My brother-in-law, Matt Price from McElroy Manufacturing, is here today. Matt's been putting up with me for many years, and I thought the least I could do for him was buy him a Rotary lunch. Please join me in welcoming Matt. Oh, we got another one too I forgot about from President. Bob, thank you for coming. Bob's a fellow Rotarian and about to be president, or our president of which club? Past president. Past president. Oh, see, he said past president like he's happy about it. Dale, what do you got, bud? Oh, Steve Barnes from Broken Arrow Club is here too. Holy cow. Man. Austin? Austin, thank you for, Austin. Yeah, how often do you hang out with Luann, and is it a good idea? Every once in a while, okay. Hey, listen, we had those new members up here. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Carson. And Carson, where are you from, bud? Maple Law, a lawyer. Boy, lawyers and bankers. Oh, my. Boy. How many of you knew that our club won an award for new members at the district conference? Yeah. So Dylan and Barney and those folks in our membership committee have done a great job. We're netting to the positive for members this year, which is a great thing. I think part of it is because we're bringing in David Bryant as our secretary, treasurer, coming up here. But thank you, Dylan, and our membership committee for everything you've done. Chuck, thank you for those introductions. I only know one other person, female, that carries a gun strapped to her thigh, and that's Karen Keith, sitting back there. Former county commissioner. It wasn't her that tried to rob the bank? Okay, that's good. He cleared your name, Karen. He cleared your name. So I want to recognize the fact that Phil Viles is here with us today. And Phil, God bless you. God bless Cinda. You know, somebody asked Phil, I was at the past president's dinner last evening, and somebody had talked to Phil, and he told him, I'm going to be, despite all this, I'm going to be at the Rotary meeting on Wednesday because Cinda would want me to be there to make sure Carl does his job. So I appreciate that, Phil. We appreciate all that you've done for our club. You have our thoughts, prayers, and sympathies with the loss of Cinda, and God bless you through this time. There's going to be a service on Saturday, June the 6th, at 2:00 p.m. at Harvard Avenue Church, remembering Cinda. I hope you'll take a time to go visit with the family during that time. So on your tables, there's a budget for the coming Rotary year, and on May 15th, you should have received an email containing that proposed budget. The architect of that budget is the aforementioned David Bryant. Our next meeting, next week, we're going to take a vote on that budget. And so I hope you'll take a moment to look at that. If you have questions about it, please get with David Bryant by the 22nd of May and let him know what your questions are. He's done a great job putting our numbers together for the coming year and making the projections to help us prepare. Once again, we got a little Rotary DNA for you, and I think you'll agree after you hear it that it fits really well with our Rotarian of the day today. As we look, it's not because you're old, Bob. It's not because you're old, buddy. This is a story that brings together youth, music, and community, and it's the Rotary Club of Tulsa Boys Band. Now, I know that Tim Nall is back there thinking, boys band, that's like New Directions or K-pop Demon Hunters or something like that. That's not what it is. This is going all the way back to the 1920s. We're just post World War I here in Tulsa. It's about the same era when our club was involved in founding the Tulsa Boys Home. And our club was growing and changing, and the leaders of our club were looking for meaningful ways to invest in young people who needed opportunity and direction. And from that came the vision for the Tulsa Boys Band. The group was made up of newsboys, the young men who stood on the corners and sold local newspapers on the streets of Tulsa. Many of them came from working class families, families without many resources, families that couldn't afford to buy sheet music or to buy instruments. And so the Rotary Club decided to help them with music education, instruments, and mentorship. And by participating in this boys' band, they gained discipline, teamwork, and confidence. Now, how many of you played in a band in high school or at some other point? Alan, Matt, yeah, I think all of you would agree that if you're going to play in a band, you got to have a little discipline, teamwork, and confidence, and it causes you to be able to work with others. This ensemble soon became a familiar presence at civic rallies, parades, and community events across the city. They would perform at things like Armistice Day parades. They would greet visiting dignitaries at the railroad station. They were out and about a lot. There's articles about it in the Tulsa World, and you can find them in the Tulsa Historical Society collection, the Tulsa Museum collection, and the director of that museum is here today. There he is, right back there. Thank you so much for coming to visit with us today. More than a band, they became a symbol of what is possible when a community chooses to invest in its youth. So we still have the Crescendo Awards today, don't we? And that's a vestige of that band. The photo on your screen shows the boy band gathered on the steps of Boston Avenue Methodist Church. No, not the one you're thinking of. This one was then located at the corner of 5th and Boston Avenue. That would be right about, I think, where the Phil Tower or Sinclair building is located now, if I'm not mistaken. So it moved later, but that photo was taken when the church was there. You can see there are quite a few young men in that band. So this story reminds us that in our early history, music was more than entertainment. It was a way to build pride, unity, and lasting connection through service. There's another youth activity that our club engages in, and we've remained deeply committed to it over the years, and that's the Rotary Youth Exchange Program. Since 1929, Rotary International's Youth Exchange Program has provided life changing opportunities for students around the world, fostering cultural understanding, leadership, and lifelong connections. Each year, the Rotary Club of Tulsa proudly hosts international students while also sponsoring local students for outbound exchanges abroad. Today, we are honored to welcome our Rotary Youth Exchange student, Willem Overmars, from the Netherlands, who will share highlights from his exchange experience with us. Please join me in welcoming Willem.
Shouldn't be too hard. So I was asked at the end of my exchange year to give a little presentation. I was told this at the start, and I was already like, presentation. At school, I was never good at these, so please bear with me. But yeah, I'm going to try and take you through my experience as I experienced this. I would like to start off with my sincerest thank you for letting me come here. As I've been told, you had to sort of scan through and accept me as a person and see like, oh, maybe we would accept him in our club. So I would like to start off with thank you, and I really do appreciate letting me come here and letting me have this great year. So thank you. So first of all, it started with my first host family. I arrived, and I got meted by Carl, Allen, and my host family, so David and Teresa Lewis. At first, it was a heavy adjustment. It's not to them, it's just to America itself. It was the food, it was everything. It was strange to me. It was real strange. But I pulled through, and I did feel a part of this family, and that was very special to me. I felt the daughters and their sons even, that they really saw me as a part of their family. They invited me to all their family dinners, all their Christmas, all of their events, which I greatly appreciated, and I had a great time. It was just, for me at that time, there was a lot of things going on, so they might have felt like I was kind of doing a lot at the same time and not always with them, which I feel a little regret towards, but we did have a lot of fun times together, and we did visit a lot of places, and sadly took a lot of pictures. I'm not the great picture man, but Teresa did love to take pictures, so that was great. And then when school started, I already had in my mind, I was set in my tone, that I wanted to play American football, since it was the most American sport I could think of, and probably also the sport that most likely linked with me. So when I first started, I came up to the coach. I was like, hey, I want to play football. Teresa was next to me. She just says the same thing. And the coach was like, have you ever seen it? No. Have you ever heard of it? I said, I've heard of the name. That was basically it. And then he decided, sure, let him play, which was, on his part, probably not the smartest decision. But it was a great experience for me. I met a great bunch of people, and it was really like a fantastic experience. If I had lived longer here, I think that would have been what I'd love to do for a good amount of time at least. And then, so I did feel a little, isolated, because you are like a zoo animal in your school. You are the exchange student. You are special, which I was never used to. I didn't love being in the spotlight. I did not. But it also felt a little strange. You had attention from a lot of people, and I didn't expect to have attention from a lot of people. But it worked out in my favor. I made a lot of good friends, and they showed me the true American teenager experience, I guess, however positive that may be. Uh, yeah, the first few months with the first house family was great, and I did really love them very much. And they're coming to dinner tomorrow at Jerry's house, which is also fantastic to see him again. And then, as where my football came from, that was at my school, Bishop Kelly. This was probably the biggest adjustment for me because I came from a small town, public school, not so Christian, really complete opposite of Bishop Kelly. But it was great to be a part of a school that would spend the amount of money they did and have the school sports they did. We didn't have school sports at my school, so it was very interesting to see the amount of thought and the amount of events and the amount of stuff that they do for their students and for their school. And the sports, I mean, it was pretty amazing. I did football for the first half year, I think, and then I switched to track, which that was because of my football coach, because he thought I had long arms, so he thought I could throw. I couldn't. But I eventually switched to running. Running was, well, fun is not the right word. Running was an experience. They had me on the 400, the 4x4, which, if you've ever run track, that is the worst race to possibly be in. You have to sprint, and you have to sprint all the way, but it's the longest full sprint you can do. So you're done after that. So I developed a few shin splints and a lot of unnecessary injuries, but it was fun, and I did make a great connection with the team. So that was something, again, to be a part of that felt special, that felt great to be included in. And then around this time when I switched to track, I went to my second host family, which during this time I started, you get warned about this period of you'll have a sort of a honeymoon period when you first arrive, and then you kind of die down a little bit. It goes a little in this slope, and that was around the time I switched to this second host family. I was less feeling it. I was a little more homesick. I was missing some of my friends because I'd missed some of their 18th birthdays, and I see all of their videos and all of them texting me, which, by the way, I still feel greatly that they felt the need to call and text just to check in on me, but it gets you a little, in a sadder mood. But it was, I mean, Allison's, which is the mom of the second host family, she was there for you. They really tried to get you out of that slump, and I think she did succeed in that way. We did have a lot of differences in how we saw things, especially regarding food. I was more seafood, eat food. She was more, I want you to eat healthy, which, I mean, fair enough that a lot of moms do that. But yeah, for me, it was a little harder to adjust. But I think I made good progress at that family, and she learned me a lot of things, or taught me a lot of things. And then eventually, at the end of the second host family experience, she took me to her family. Her family was in Wisconsin, so a really long drive. But it was really cool to see that different area, and then, again, a completely different set of people. Also in a really, really cold environment. But no, it was fun, and I had a great host brother to mess around in the snow with. We sled off a bunch of stairs that we probably shouldn't have sled off, but it was fun while it was there. We went to a professional football game. We went to a Packers game when we were there, and that was also pretty interesting. The only games I've ever been to were professional soccer games or stuff like that, but the football games and the things that go on at football games, I've never seen something like that before. It was really interesting. And then when we went to Scry with the whole thing, most of you know about Scry. A bunch of exchange students, you're in a bunch of the same situation, and it was just, we felt normal. It was, for a year that you feel so special, it was great to just feel normal, like one of them, and that's why we got real close, and it was real fun. It was just a great weekend overall. And then another thing like that was Hawaii. Just the best experience here, I think, by far. It was a great week. We had great people to lead you through the thing, and I had the best roommates to accompany me with that. So, yeah, that was a fantastic experience. And then my third host family, of which most of you know, is Jerry right there. And I think that was, of all my host families, he and Kay were the best match for me personally. They messed around a lot, which was fun to me. But the first week, I think the first week, there was a little timing issue. As most of you know, Jerry had a heart attack, which was just not great timing because at the same time, my parents came to visit. We did not plan this, obviously. Jerry, you could have timed it better. But it was still fun, and he did pull through. He didn't really show any sign of weakness, and he let my parents do whatever they wanted, and they met Jerry as I have met Jerry, that he was still his normal self. He was just a little more exhausted than normal. And then at the same time, we had Carnival. Carnival is this event at my home that I really did miss, and I really, really missed out on. It's just a festival that's like a week-long festival that my friends were like, oh, well, you should have been here for it, which was another kind of homesick situation. But I at the same time, Hawaii came, so I was fine with it. I was like, oh, great, well, I have Hawaii. And then we played a lot of games with Jerry's family and Jerry's sons and daughters, which was also a lot of fun. And then, which most of you heard about last week, I had Camp Enterprise, which was just also fantastic. Great people. I met my prom date there. And there was good speakers. That was very interesting. And there, you could hear that they've had experiences that you've never had before, which was interesting to listen to. And the events that was hosted by them was also great. We had a great dodgeball event. Came second place. I don't really like that part. But no, Camp Enterprise was just a great learning experience overall. And I think that's kind of the gist of it, and also my time. So I would like to thank you. And if you have any more questions, you can always come and ask. There was a lot more that happened during this year, but for obvious reasons, I can't say everything. So thank you.
Thank you, Willem. I don't think I've ever heard one of our exchange students compared to a zoo animal before. I guess maybe you would qualify as a giraffe. I don't know. We've enjoyed having you as part of our Rotary Club and in our meetings. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. You're welcome to come back and visit Jerry anytime you would like. Just please do not induce in him another heart attack. Jerry and Kay, Allison, DeAndrea, and Teresa and David Lewis all graciously shared their time in hosting Willem. Your kindness and hospitality is greatly appreciated. We've got to thank Alan Wayland and Duff Weddle, Mary Beth Sawyer, is she here today, and the entire Rotary Youth Exchange Committee for their dedication to this program. You know, Jerry and Alan and Duff have been doing this for a long time, and they've been doing it with all their hearts, and it's so meaningful to our club, and thank you guys. Thank you so much. Well, speaking of K-pop demon hunters, today's Rotarian of the day is Bob Sade, the owner of Sade Music Company. Bob's lifelong passion for music and music education was inspired by his father, who many of us remember, Jimmy Sade, who founded Sade Music in 1946. Under Bob's leadership, Sade Music Company expanded to 6 locations across Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas. Bob joined our Rotary Club in 1977 and served as club president in the 2001-2002 Rotary year. Over the years, he's generously shared his time and leadership in numerous roles, including IBA Chair, Membership Development Chair, Technology Chair, Director, Secretary, Long Range Planning Chair, Invocation and Memorials Chair, and Programs Chair. Most importantly, Bob is the father of 5 and grandfather of 12. Please join me in welcoming past President Bob Sade.
Our speaker today graduated from Dartmouth with a double degree in geography and political science. Although born in Manhattan, the big one back east, not in Kansas, he now proudly calls Oklahoma his adoptive home state. Constant stress led him to escape New York City, no surprise, and bicycle across America, including Route 66. He documented his journey in a memoir with a fascinating title, West of Wheeling, How I Quit My Job, Broke the Law, and Biked to a Better Life. He eventually moved to Oklahoma, started Tulsa Tours, and now leads a team of part-time guides across Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Norman, and is eyeing additional expansion. His topics includes things such as the settlement of Indian Territory, development of early oil fields, the rise and destruction of Greenwood, inspiration behind Art Deco, the impetus behind the Pay Plan, which was a massive urban renewal initiative in downtown Oklahoma City, and the origin of Sooner football, and I'm sure he will eventually add the resurgence of Oklahoma State football. Please join me in welcoming Jeffrey Tannenbaus.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. There's a lot of talent and leadership in this room, and I'm honored to be here and share with you a little bit about my story, because I am not from Oklahoma, but 10 years later, I am still here, and I'm excited to share with you what led a New Yorker to call Tulsa home and what I've been up to since then. So here I am. This is the crossroads of the world. Maybe you've been there yourself, Times Square, which I took for granted because I worked right there. And while it may be a fun destination to visit, it is not fun when everyone is visiting and you are trying to get to work. And I thought I had found my dream job as a corporate event planner. And I was living in downtown Brooklyn and commuting to Times Square, at first by subway, but actually I am an introvert and I don't really like people. So being packed onto a subway car with strangers was not my idea of a good time getting to work. And I thought, what else could there be? And it turns out right around that time, New York City introduced something called bike share, where there were rental bicycles that were meant for one-way trips around the city. If you've been to New York in the past 10, 12 years, you may have seen these large blue bicycles called city bikes. That's for City Bank, but the play on the city is clear. And so they have thousands of these bikes for short, one-way rentals. That was great, so you don't have to take your own bike to work, worry about it still being there by the end of the day, which anything not nailed down in New York, and even if it is nailed down, probably won't be there. So I hopped on these bikes, and it unlocked a sense of freedom that I did not experience during the workday, where I was constantly stressed out, and I think the term now is called toxic workplace, but that was not identified at the time, but that is definitely what it was. And as hard as I worked, as early as I came, working through lunch, staying late. I just could not please anybody, and the stress began to mount. I changed jobs, the same thing happened, and I was just not sure what I should do. I knew that that career path was no longer viable. A lot of my friends were moving out of New York, and I was wondering what else might be there, might be out in the world. But as a New Yorker, I was trained to think that there is nothing between the Hudson River and Los Angeles County. So, because I had enjoyed biking around New York City so much, and it gave me that sense of freedom and exhilaration, that I wondered, what if I took a bike trip across the country using the very same commuter bicycle I would rent to get to work? You're not supposed to do that. And this had never been done for obvious reasons, but I was determined that I was going to do it, and I'm very much of a rule follower, and so this was breaking all of the rules, but I was desperate, and so I set out on that bike, which you can see has a little blue tint there. These bikes weigh about 45 pounds. It's really not a practical bicycle to go very far. That's the point. You're only supposed to use them for short distances. But away I went one morning in August of 2015. And that is the path that I took. People ask me what route did you follow across the country? And my answer was the flattest one. So where can you find flat land? You can find it along the coastline, but that's going to run out pretty soon if you're trying to move west. You can also find it along rivers, because rivers don't go uphill. And often there are railroads that were built alongside rivers, just like here in Tulsa, and those railroads have been removed and turned into rail-to-trails. So they have become bike trails, and that would sometimes guide my very ad hoc journey west through some of the cities and small towns, even places you may not think that could exist, like there is a Santa Claus in Indiana. And so I discovered America in my own way, and I was truly fascinated by what I found, and I was taking this hulking rental bike, so I was not going very fast. I had plenty of time to stop and smell the flowers, read all of the informational signs along the historic buildings and routes, and audition different cities to see what they might be like, who I would meet, if I could see myself there. And spoiler alert, I chose Tulsa. But also in the running, I had very favorable experiences in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, which were also two up-and-coming developing cities. And so I really enjoyed my time there. But here's a little bit of what it looked like. Probably know where that is. And that is the bike that I took. Now, I did pay for this bike. I broke the rules of the program, but my credit card was on file when I undocked the bike, and they did charge the credit card in full for not returning it. You can also see that I had a souvenir New York license plate. I was advised not to do that because across most of the country, people don't really like New Yorkers, but it turned out to be a great decision as it would become an icebreaker. The farther west I got, the more incredulous people saw that bike. They're not really sure what that was. People asked me if there was an electric bike or what was going on. I had a trailer on the back of it to hold my meager belongings, because when you are biking across the country, you have to carry everything. So you are very picky about what you take. And so people weren't sure what was going on with that, if the bike was electric, which now they do have electric bikes, but this was before then. But they did know where New York was. So that was an instant icebreaker for them to approach me and ask, number one, are you really from New York? Yes. And then number two, is there a baby in the back of that? which I said, I hope there's not, because there's no ventilation in there. It was just for some of my supplies. And this is a scene from Pennsylvania. There's a bike trail that goes from Washington, D.C. to Pittsburgh. It's actually two different trails, the C&O and the Gap, for hiking and biking. And it was on an old rail line, and you can see it's very smoothly with a crushed stone. Even a rental bike can make it on that trail. And that was where I felt I really hit my stride. I had a lot of doubts about taking this bike, number one, and how far would it really go. But on this trail, it did just fine, and I would be able to camp out along the trail side when I needed to. Jumping over a few states, begin to get into the Midwest, which I really did not have much experience with as a New Yorker, because that was simply land to fly over. And but on a bicycle, you feel every mile. And this is me entering Illinois, but much southern, very far south in Illinois. And I would meet people along the way. They would stop and take my photo, which was great because setting up a tripod, and that takes a lot of time. And I was struggling with biking. I mean, it could have been 6, 7 hours. I'm not going very far. So spending 20 minutes to set up a tripod, that's valuable daylight that I am losing. The best bike riding I did across the country is not too far from here, and maybe it will be inspiration for some of you to go out and ride the Katy Trail. It's for the MKT Railroad. There is also a Katy Trail here in Tulsa, same rail line, and this one goes across Missouri, and it has since expanded. You can basically go from St. Louis to Kansas City on flat pavement. It's not pavement, it's crushed stone. And you can camp out along the way. You can stay in these small towns that have B&Bs and now Airbnbs. It was a great look at some really cool small places. Herman, Missouri, if you've ever been there, was one of my favorites. And Missouri leads down into Kansas, and it was in Joplin, Missouri, where I picked up something called Route 66, which is having quite a moment this year for the centennial. I did not feel so happy about it when I was biking on it. It had just been designated a U.S. bicycle route, which I thought would be great. There would be shoulders to safely ride my bicycle, and I was on a 4-lane highway with no shoulder here in Oklahoma, just further to the northeast, wondering what had I gotten myself into. So that happened right after I left Kansas, where I spent just lunch. If you've driven Route 66, there's only about a dozen miles there. So that was an easy state to check off on my list. And here we got to Oklahoma. And I had never been to Oklahoma. I didn't know anybody from Oklahoma, didn't know what they ate in Oklahoma, didn't know what the skyline would look like, what you would do here, but it was in the way, so I proceeded. And it was flatter than the Rocky Mountains, so I thought that was good. By this point, I left in August, it is now October, so I'm running into winter. You already cannot bicycle across the Rocky Mountains. They're getting snow there, so I was heading south, and Route 66 was taking me further west. And the further west I got, the more miserable it became. If you have ever driven across the Texas Panhandle, you know how boring that is. Imagine you're on a bicycle and the headwinds at 20 miles an hour mean that you are walking faster than biking. So I was really questioning my life decisions around Amarillo and thought about leaving my bike right there at Cadillac Ranch so they could spray paint it and I would just walk home. But I did make it to New Mexico, where there were similar desolate stretches that awaited me. I did enjoy my time in Santa Fe, where it snowed, because now we're in November, and they have a high elevation, so I did have to wait out some snow, but I eventually made it to Albuquerque, and then on to Arizona, where it snowed again. I did get to see the Grand Canyon, which was pretty cool, but Arizona similarly was very difficult on a bicycle, lots of wind, the civilization is farther and farther apart, the daylight was decreasing, and even though I was getting closer to California, I wasn't sure if winter was going to end my plans. But I made it into California. That is at Joshua Tree National Park. If you've ever been there, it's a great place to visit in a car. There is no water, electricity services, and at this point it's now in December. In the high desert it gets kind of cold, and my Walmart sleeping bag did not provide adequate protection for that. But after 3 nights I did survive and made my way out of Joshua Tree into Los Angeles and the end of Route 66 at Santa Monica. So I did end up finishing this unlikely ride. I was met there by a different bike share company called Breeze Bike Share, and they organized a ride to the pier, and it was really nice camaraderie to meet other cyclists, not only in California, but in other towns and cities along the way. So all in all, it took about 5.5 months. I would not recommend it to anybody, but if you want to do if you want to do the Katy Trail in Missouri, I say go for it. I've got a rental bike. You can borrow it, no problem. I was met by I did get some publicity, national publicity for doing this because it was a kind of a crazy idea. And so people, by the time I got to Los Angeles, had heard about me and had some fans, which is always nice to welcome me. And then I ended up writing a book about this journey. And there it is, west of Wheeling, because I passed through Wheeling, West Virginia, and it was the first sign of me actually heading west. How I quit my job, which I told you about, and broke the law because I wasn't really supposed to take that bike, but I did pay for it. And I biked to a better life here in Tulsa. There's me on those city bikes after the book had been published. Also here in Boston Avenue with the bike. They did not want it back. I asked them, if I brought it back, could I get a little bit of a refund? And they didn't want anything to do with me, and by that point, I didn't want anything to do with New York, so I still have the bike as a souvenir from this life-altering journey, and ended up starting a tourism company here. I had done tourism in New York. I was actually a licensed tour guide, and I started on the double-decker buses. And then that got me into corporate events. And I thought of when I moved here, and I really struggled to find a job. I did find one, it didn't work out, and I wondered what I could do on the side as a little side hustle. I thought about tourism, wasn't really sure if people came to Tulsa. Why would you come here? And I mean, when I got here 10 years ago, that not an unreasonable thing to think, but as you all know, Tulsa's having a moment, and we're on the national radar. And so I put together some ideas of how I could greet visitors and show people around. In fact, the gentleman all the way on the left, you may recognize. I believe he's a member here. Derek Frazier. Yep, also a tour guide. Did you know that he was a tour guide? No? Now you do. So here we are. We have 4 guides here in Tulsa, plus myself, and we do like to have a good time doing different things around the city. If you're wondering what kind of things you might do, either as a local or a visitor, obviously the tunnel tours. People have heard that there are these underground tunnels underneath Tulsa. As a New Yorker, I don't really consider them tunnels. In fact, only the one pictured all the way on the left I would consider a real tunnel, but there are historic hallways that have all this nice information on them that we can take visitors through. And it's like an indoor history tour. It's a great introduction to Tulsa. Again, in the beginning, I was like, why, these aren't really tunnels, why is this interesting? But it's a great way to get acquainted with Tulsa, especially for skeptical people from the coasts who end up in Tulsa for a wedding or a work conference, and it's a good way to introduce them to what we have here. We also have a lot of nice Art Deco, which celebrated its centennial last year. Nobody made a big deal of it except for me, but I tried. It is a fascinating design movement, and Tulsa has more than its fair share of Art Deco buildings, and here are two of them. The one on the left is called the Tulsa Club, which you may know now as a hotel. The one on the right is called the Philcade Building, which is where we have our tour office, and that building is about to undergo a massive transformation into a 4-star hotel, luxury apartments, and hopefully they'll keep our little tour office in the building. Right after this, I'm going to meet with some of the designers of the building to tell them what Art Deco is so that they get the design of the rooms right. We also started a true crime and haunted history tour. Oklahoma, and Tulsa in particular, has its fair share of dark secrets, and there's a lot of sketchy history, especially in what's now called the Arts District. And we'll tell you about that over by Kane's Ballroom on North Main Street. As a New Yorker, I didn't really understand oil. Gas, you just put it in your car and it goes. Didn't think, does it come out of the ground? Who gets it? But Tulsa, former oil capital of the world, has a lot of fascinating history, and it's really entrepreneurial history. Now, Tulsa is trying to become this entrepreneurial hub. We don't want to talk about oil and gas anymore, but as someone who's not from here, I find this fascinating. The early oil fields and those, patrons of Tulsa started off making their money in oil, and they give us the great culture and cultural organizations that we have today. So I always love talking about oil history on our tours, and have a specific tour designed for that. We do tours for team building, corporate events, different kinds of things. That was for a Main Street conference that was just in town. People from all over the country coming to check out Tulsa. True to my origins as a bicyclist, I've been in Tulsa now for 10 years, but the first 7 of them I was without a car. And I live downtown because I'm from New York and I'm used to tall buildings. And if there's too much open space, I get nervous. So I had to be downtown, and I didn't really need a car, and so I continued to get around by bicycle. As you know, there's no grocery store downtown, although one is coming. And so I would have to bike from downtown to Trader Joe's, which is where I go, and you can see me actually I have 2 backpacks on. I have a backpack, like a hiking backpack, and then another little backpack, and then the bananas didn't fit, so those are strapped onto the side. And then I would bike back to downtown. You have to be very choosy about what you buy. Nothing in glass jars unless you really need it, because that's heavy. But sure enough, I did end up getting a vehicle for the tour business, and now can give driving tours, and more importantly, drive to the grocery store for a bag of chips. We've been in some of the parades, like the Christmas parade. It's always fun to be part of that tradition. And yeah, it's great having a car. I don't know what I was missing before that, but. So what are we doing now? I'm not running for governor. No thanks, no. But we did start a tour company in Oklahoma City, which has its own rich history as well. I know people from Tulsa have, chip on their shoulder about Oklahoma City, but, I think both cities offer different things. And Tulsa, in terms of tourism, is far ahead of Oklahoma City. There's a lot of different cultural options here. So that's our tour company in OKC. We also have a guide there that can do the tours as driving back and forth. That gets old very quickly, as you know. And then we started doing tours just south of Oklahoma City, a little town that has some football in it. And we hope to launch that a little bit more later this year. So we've only done a few test tours there of the Norman Main Street, not of campus, but there's some nice history in Main Street. It's pretty compact. Do a little quick hour walking tour, and it's a good way to learn about Norman. Recently, Tulsa was featured in the Wall Street Journal about 3 weeks ago, and I was very surprised that my name was the first 2 words of the article. But it highlighted some of our tours and some of the other people that are making Tulsa such a vibrant destination to live in and visit. So I was very honored to be included with the others who were mentioned in that article, much less as the first 2 words of that article. And even more recently, and definitely a bigger honor than being in the Wall Street Journal, was being elected to the board of directors of the Oklahoma Historical Society. And member Karen Keith, congratulations on becoming president of that great organization. And I'm really excited to be able to contribute that and share my love of history and Oklahoma with everyone who wants to listen to me. And with that was my last slide.
John Baumgartner, you know something about the tunnels downtown. You may have a building or two associated. Do you have any questions for Jeffrey, like what the toll is to go through those tunnels on the tours? No? Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
From a guy that probably needs this answer, how much weight did you lose riding your bike across the country?
That's a great question. In the first part of the journey, there was definitely a noticeable difference. I could not consume enough calories, quite a shock to the body. But as I moved into the western states, my pace slowed. And I was still eating like an animal, but not doing as much exercise. So actually, by the end of the trip, I was in some of the worst shape of my life. Yeah. Great question. Yeah, so I know how to ride a bike, but I actually don't know how to fix them. And that particular bike required some specialized tools that I didn't have. So I was like, I'll worry about that when I get my first flat tire. I did get one in a place called Claremore. And got the flat fixed in Tulsa. I did get new tires in Amarillo. And other than that, the bike held up really well.
Any other questions? There we go.
Did you have any support team to like bring you food in the middle of the panhandle? Not too many places to get.
Yeah, support team would have been nice. Some sponsors would have been nice. But nope, I was all on my own. Sometimes I got food from strangers who thought I looked really desperate. But no, just had to find my way, find my food.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Jeffrey talked about being in Amarillo and questioning his life decisions. I suspect everyone in Amarillo questions their life decisions at some point. So here's a little Rotary DNA for you that many of you in this room know, very closely tied to what Jeffrey accomplished. How many of you remember past president Bob McKenzie? Yeah, Bob rode all the way across the country raising money for polio, Rotary International's big cause. So we recognize and have some DNA with what you accomplished there, Jeffrey. And you seem like a real nice guy for a New Yorker. Are you sure you are from New York?
I am.
So today, a book honoring our program will be donated to our partners in education, and this week's book is called How Cities Work. Jeff's got a copy in front of him, and I bet he'll sign that. We've got some outstanding upcoming programs. Colton Craig is going to be here to talk to us about the golf industry. I know no one here particularly cares about golf, but it's an interesting topic, especially with what Colton is going to talk about. Yes, sir.
Just to add on that, so it's going to be a tour of all the Scottish golf courses. It's going to be kind of it'll be very similar to today's presentation in terms of the tour of Scottish golf courses.
So for those of you who couldn't hear it, Colton recently completed a sweep through the prominent Scottish golf courses, and he's going to talk about that. He's in the golf course industry, so he's got sort of an insider's view, plus he's related to Chaz and Curtis and Carol. We have coming also our recently inducted District Governor, Laura Garrett, who'll be here the following week, and on the 10th, I think we'll have a full house because we're going to have a little, they call it a district attorney forum. I suspect it may be something closer to a debate. We'd like to take a moment to thank our Rotary sponsors. Their placards are on the table with their logos. Their support and advertising dollars make it possible for our club to do all the things we do. We appreciate our sponsors' support. Thank you all for being here today and what you do to make a difference in our community. Before you leave, our new members are going to walk out there. I hope you'll take a minute to shake their hand. And with that, we stand adjourned.